Trouble in Paradise, one of Hollywood's royal couples going their separate ways. Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes, Tomcat, have now subjected their daughter SURI to a broken home. So what happened? Many have long speculated about the influence of Tom Cruise's devotion to the Church of Scientology on the young family. Katie, who converted from Catholicism after their marriage, is said to have quickly lost her taste for the cult founded by L. Ron Hubbard in 1968. Scientology has always been mysterious to many and sinister to some. Some beliefs seem to come out of the Libertarian Handbook, strong belief in the power of the self to be successful. But then they also teach that humans are all immortal aliens trapped inside the human body. So, needless to say, the Church of Scientology is one of the most controversial new religious movements of the 20th century, with millions of estimated converts around the earth. Critics describe it as a cult that financially defrauds and abuses members, charging exorbitant fees for so-called spiritual services, cutting people off from family and friends. It's believed that Tom Cruise's intention was to send 6-year-old SURI to a Sea Org Scientology indoctrination cruise ship, and apparently that became the final straw. Sea Org, where the highest levels of Scientology are taught to children as young as 5, separating them from their parents, with reports of emotional and physical abuse. The church denies all this. All the same, the Sea Org program has been referred to as a cult boot camp, where kids are forced to explore strange questions while attached to a lie detector. Ask things like, have you ever thought someone was crazy? Have you ever done something to your body that you should not have? Or have you ever decided that when I grow up, I'll get even with someone? Whatever happened to roasting marshmallows around a fire and canoeing? Anyway, scores of so-called Scientology survivors have escaped from the influence of Sea Org and the church, revealing stories about how they signed billion-year contracts. I said billion-year contracts of brainwashing. Teens receiving no formal education, having no credit cards or money or means of supporting themselves. So, what really goes on behind closed doors at the Church of Scientology? Our next guest has written extensively of his own experiences. Jeff Hawkins, author of Counterfeit Dreams, joins us via Skype from Portland, Oregon. Hi, Jeff.
Hello.
Well, thanks so much for coming in. First of all, you can't confirm or deny what the story is with SURI and whether or not she was going to go to Sea Org, but do you think it's plausible?
You know, I seriously doubt that SURI would ever be recruited into the Sea organization because they tend not to recruit celebrities or celebrity children. They figure that they're much more valuable to the cause, being outside and creating good public relations for the church, through their work and their contacts and so forth. So probably not. Probably SURI would not be recruited into the Sea organization.
Well, it's something I was wondering about when I first saw this thing floated, because I asked myself the question, if I want to give people like Tom Cruise and some others plausible deniability about some of the abuses, what's the first thing I would do? And the very first thing would be never to abuse them or their kids. I need them to be able to always say, I don't have any experience of this, Mr. Adler. Don't know what you're talking about. Exactly.
And the Scientology celebrities live in a very, very sheltered world in terms of Scientology, and they are given the best service. They are kept away from anything that might disturb their faith and so forth. So they're very coddled. It's a very coddled group.
But you, Mr. Hawkins, were not a celebrity, and I gather you were not coddled.
Quite the opposite. Just one thing about your introduction that I wanted to correct. They say they have millions of members. It's just not true. I worked at the highest levels of Scientology at the international base in San Jacinto, California. I had access to all of the membership address lists and files and that sort of thing. And, I can tell you that at most Scientology has something like 40,000 members worldwide. probably at this point 30 to 40,000 members worldwide, and that's about it. They do not have millions. That's simply a lie.
So they don't have millions of people, but they have had millions and millions of dollars. I mean, would you say, based on the relatively small membership base, they've been very, very good at recruiting people with hefty balance sheets?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They go after people that are well off, that have a lot of money, and they convince them to donate thousands or tens, hundreds, thousands, or millions of dollars to the church. And they do quite well on that. They have a big cash reserve.
Were you a man of means when you were recruited, sir?
I was not. I was recruited to the church when I was in my early 20s. This was back in the 60s when a lot of people were searching for, alternate spiritual answers and that sort of thing. And, what they offered seemed to be good. They were saying, well, we can do away with war. We can do away with violence. We can make people saner. And I thought, well, I'm all for that. So, and that was enough to keep me going, for many, many years. But seriously, over the years, it just became more and more cult-like and more abusive until I just had it and I left.
Were you told to ignore your family, pretend they don't exist, do whatever you can to separate yourself from them, that they're just a bad influence on you? Were you ever given those sorts of commands or admonitions?
My family was, most of my family was Scientologists, so I wasn't required to disconnect from them. My mother was not a Scientologist, but she never was critical, so they never made a big deal out of that. After I left the church and was out on my own, my brother was told to disconnect from me, and was told that he could no longer speak to me because I was what they call a suppressive person, a non-person. And he basically told him to go to hell, and he quit the church as well at that point. But a lot of people do go along with that, and they will disconnect from their families, their children, their parents, or whatever, because the church tells them to.
Your book is called Counterfeit Dreams. In the short time that we have left with you, Mr. Hawkins, what would you say was the most egregious piece of counterfeit? Which dream was a total lie?
Well, I think that anyone gets involved with Scientology because of altruistic motives. They want to help people. They want to help the world. And for me, the biggest betrayal was that they simply are not doing that. They are simply a business that has to do with control of people's lives and with accumulating a lot of money. And at the international headquarters, it's a very, very abusive environment. Physical abuse and hardships and so forth. And it has nothing to do with helping people. It has everything to do with money and control, and that's really what they're all about.
Jeff Hawkins, thanks for helping us out tonight. Good luck with your book, and we'll have you back.
Great. Thank you very much.
Jeff Hawkins, a survivor of the Church of Scientology.